Now this is the area where you might need to bring in some expert help to do it, the whitelist. So if you're running Windows 10, in the Pro and Enterprise versions you can apply security policies, and that'll allow you to set up a policy that says only the following applications can run. Right? And so that is a little bit complex, and I would recommend that if you want to go down this route, get yourself an expert to do that. Right? You can't do it on a Windows 10 home machine. There is a kind of workaround that kind of works, kind of being in brackets, and I wouldn't really recommend it. Right? It doesn't really play. As we said before, both iOS and Android give you basic application certification if you download it through their respective store. So if it's jailbroken though, God only knows what you get. So that can be an issue. For hardening, what I'd suggest is you start to use only the modern browsers. Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Opera, those ones. Keep them updated. We do all update our browsers.
So you don't classify Edge as being a modern browser yet? Still too close to below to
I've played with it and keep going back to Chrome. Right? It doesn't give me the results I want when I want them. It sometimes plays around. So I thought, no, not until they've sorted it out a bit more. I'll stick with Chrome. Right? But for me too, a lot of university applications are set up to run better on Chrome, so it makes it much easier. And I find that most of the other things seem to run better on it. That's my personal preference. It may be better if you're using Edge and it's working. Go for it. It is a modern browser. Right? The thing is, we need to keep them updated, which is something a lot of people don't do. They forget about the browser. Block or install Adobe Flash Player and Java if you don't need them. Right? If you're using Flash, then maybe it's time to start thinking about that we go to HTML5, get away from this, because Flash is a great way of getting malware. You might not have it on your browsers because you're pushing stuff out through your website, but if you're going to somebody else's website, you don't know what you're getting on their version of Flash.
So what you're saying is what's that?
HTML5. Because you can do most of the things that Flash will do in HTML5. If you do need Java, then make sure you download it from Java. Go to java.com and download it. And just download the JRE, the Java Runtime Environment. You don't need the full developer version, which is 300 or 400 meg, or actually close to a gigabyte now, I think. The JRE is relatively small, but it does everything you need. But if you get it from there and not some download site, you know you've got the right thing and it's not coming with malware. Maybe you add multi-factor authentication. And this is where you start to add another hardware factor to your login. So this is a hardware token, right? It's just a little token, about half the size of that, about that size, and I left my one in my bag in the motel. I get one for work to do remote access, so I can remote in through a VPN tunnel, and I require this to set it up. So what it needs, your username, put in your password, and then you get a one-time code off here, which you put in there. Bang. Right? That proves that you've got the device. You can also do it with a software token. So you can put Google Authenticator, for example, on your phone. Right? And Google Authenticator will run any number of different accounts on there. So, for example, when I was setting up a whole series of stuff in Amazon for spatial services 12 or 18 months ago, I set up on my phone, I think it was about 12 different Google accounts with Google Authenticator to give me one-time access into the thing so I could get it all set up. And once I got it all set up, we passed it off to real-time hardware events and pulled mine off and so on. But for ease of using, this is fabulous, provided you don't lose your phone. Because then it becomes a real nightmare. You can't authenticate anymore. And then there's passwords. So passwords is a problem that we all have because we all use passwords, right? And most of us have one or two favourite passwords that we use for just about everything, right? And we were leaving, as Will said this morning, we were leaving CSU at Dubbo, and one of the girls said there, she said, I've been here for 14 years and I've got one password and one PIN, and I use it for everything. Home, university, alarm system, bank. And I thought, oh, joy. And she was in the back watching the video as well, so, so she knew all about it, but didn't see an issue. It made it nice and easy. One password, one PIN. Covers the world. Right? So it's a bit of an issue. So what I would suggest to you, maybe what you want to think about is stop passwords and start using passphrases. Right? So here's an example of a passphrase. I learned how to use passphrases at the masterclass. Right? So then I turned that by using, let's say, the first letter of each word. So that'll be ILHTUPP at or ATMC. I'll put an exclamation mark on the back. Then I decided, okay, let's play with this a bit more. So instead of I'll put 1, then I'll put the L as an uppercase. 2, I'll make it a figure 2. The 2 P's is uppercase. At will be the at symbol. The masterclass in capitals and the exclamation mark on the back. So now I've got a 16-character password. Right? The entropy of that is so much stronger because the longer the password, the more effort it is to break it. Right? So this is now nice and complex. It's also easy to remember because you remember the phrase, I learned how to use passphrases at the masterclass. Right? Or it might be some other phrase that means something to you. Passphrase. Make it long. But you'll remember it. Right? And it becomes rather difficult. So I thought, let's check this passphrase. So I went to the Gibson Research Company on the web and I said, let's put in this password and let's see what it does. It's come out at 12 characters and it says, if it was doing it online, assuming 1,000 guesses per second, it'll take 1.74 billion centuries to crack it. Okay, this is getting somewhere. If we took it offline, 1.74 thousand centuries, or if we put the massive array computer at the thing, we'd get it down to 1.74 centuries. I think I can outlast them. Just a little bit. Right? So, this is how we do it. Nice, long passphrase. Makes it so much harder to guess. We're not using a word. Because most of these searches occur against words. Password 123. Right? Password. I've got the first bit. 3 characters. Yeah. It's either 1, 2, 3 or 4, 5, 6, isn't it? Or maybe if he's really smart, it's 9, 8, 7. Right? Got it. No problems. So, why don't we then start thinking about using a password manager? Right? So here's a couple. I like the first one, Password Safe. Password Safe is a nice little program that will run on your computer or on a USB stick. Right? And what you do with it is you download it from Bruce Snyder's website, or I think it's now on GitHub. But anyway, that's the link. Download it. And when you set it up, it requires a password. It uses that password to encrypt the whole thing. So when you want to get into it, you've got to put in the password. Passphrase, nice big long one, to make it really difficult for anybody to crack. If they get it, it's useless to them. They can't open it. And then once you've got it open, then you can put in there thousands of passwords. You can generate random passwords, right? And you can, a randomly generated password, you can click on it and say, copy this and paste it into the web page that you want, and then having pasted it, it removes it from the clipboard in memory. So there's nothing left. It's just bang bang. So I have about 600 odd different passwords and accounts. That's mine. Oh, by the way. 600 odd I've got. And it's impossible to keep in memory. So actually it isn't impossible because I use an external memory device. Password manager. So this is how it works. You get something that looks like this. You put in, what is it? Your title, what's your username? It might be an email address or whatever. This is where you put in the password. You can click show so you can see what it looks like. Or you can click generate. And if you generate it, you can actually set the thing up and say, I want it to create 12 character passwords, or 16 character passwords, or 256 character passwords, whatever. And I want them randomly generated, then you can set some detail around there. Just let it run. Hit generate, bang. They want you to create a new password. Oh, okay, go back in, hit generate. There it is. Copy, bang, fixed. You don't have to remember the password. One passphrase you remember to get into it. And everything else, you rely on this to give you the detail. Does that make sense? It certainly saves this issue of keeping, the one password for everything and the one PIN for everything. You can...
if you think about it with that, you are actually, in effect, keeping one password for everything.
One ring to rule them all. Right?
And LastPass got hacked.
LastPass got hacked, which is why I keep mine on my USB stick. LastPass, which is one of the other ones, is a cloud-based one. Right? Makes it even easier, but it was hacked. So if you've got a weak password as your seed password, password 123, they're going to get you. If you've got something strong to protect it, it's a different ballgame. I'm that little bit more paranoid. Sometimes I wonder, as I said to Will today, am I paranoid enough? Right? So I keep this where I can control it. So it sits in my pocket. That bottom pocket, somewhere. There, got it. There. And then, click OK, copies it across, bang, and it's done in the bucket. It becomes that simple. So I would recommend to you a password manager. Up to you to do it, but it gets you away from the problem of that one password that you use for everything, which becomes a nightmare because you have problems trying to remember it, right? Or you remember one and you can't remember anything else. You always use the one. Macros. Block anything that's not yours. So your own macros, trust them, everything else block. And that becomes the easy one. And don't open Word or Excel files that arrive by mail. There's a few ways around this. We at work use a thing called kitework, so we can securely pass things between each other, to external places. Kiteworks is a really good program, costs a small fortune. Governments can buy it. They've got the money. Right? The way I do it, if I have to do swap stuff between other lecturers, is I actually use OneDrive. And I share a folder on OneDrive that I've got with them. And then I'll send them an email and say, I have put the file that you want with this name in that folder. So I don't give them a link. I give them the name of the file. I tell them about the folder that I'd previously shared with them. So how does anybody find that? I also don't follow on from the original email that sent them the link to the folder, okay? So start a new one. So if somebody does intercept it, they've got a file name, but they don't know what folder or where. You might have said OneDrive, but where in OneDrive? Okay? So it's a little bit of security by observation, but it does help.
Can I just ask something quickly?
Sure.
So if you're using complex Excel spreadsheets with a lot of formulas, so you don't use anyone else's spreadsheet or anything like that? You run through OneDrive?
I do, but normally what we do is we will ensure we don't have macros in it. Right? Now,
So disable macros?
yeah. So that causes a problem with some of the university stuff, because some of this stuff does have macros that we need to run, particularly for end of session type stuff, working out marks and grade distributions and so But we will download those from the university. So when I download it from there, I know I'm getting it from a trusted source. Right? So that's the other way around it, is you always download it from a trusted source. If you're getting it from that trusted source, you know you can use it. If you're getting it from somebody who just turns up an email, could be the dodgy brothers. You know, and this is where you start to weigh that risk. And I've decided personally that the risk is too high, so I delete it. But you know, you need to look at that in your own circumstances and decide which way do I go. Right? How do I do that? And if you've got stuff that's really complex that needs to move, then maybe you've got to look at some sort of secure file transfer system. You know, even if it is secure FTP, to do that.
Thanks.
Okay. And then backup. We should have backup for important data. You should ideally have daily backup of all your transactional data, the transactions for the day. You should ideally have a copy stored off-site just in case of fire, flood, break-in, etc. Somebody driving that truck through the front door. Do you run weekly or monthly full system backups where you back up not just the data but the whole box and get everything? Do you have a spare computer in case somebody does drive that truck through the front door or steals the computer or something, so that I can continue on? Right? Do you have a business continuity plan? How are you going to do things if any or all of the aforementioned things actually start to happen? What's the plan? Right? We have this problem as well, you know, in government. How do we plan this? And we use two fictional events because we have two data sets, one in Sydney, one in Bathurst. If the water level in Sydney Harbour rose to the extent that Springwood is now the new port of Sydney, and our data centre is now under 40, 50 metres of water, how are we going to operate? Right? Alternatively, if the comet lands in Bathurst, and Bathurst is now a large smoking hole in the ground, how are we going to operate? Right? So we pick some really extreme examples, but say, how are you going to operate? If the whole thing is gone, it's just a big hole in the ground, loads of smoke, dust, not much else. Now what? Because we need to operate. We're the government, we have to keep working. What do we do? So this is where the continuity plan comes in. How do we do that? And it does take a while to figure that out. And you have a range of different contingencies, you know, from minor little things where the building's got flooded and, you know, somebody's set off the fire alarm in the computer room and flooded the thing, to, you know, the smoking hole in the ground and everything in between. So you need to look at all those sorts of things. But you need to look at it. And then there's some other things that you might want to look at. And these are the wannabes that come in really handy. Have you got an inventory of authorised and unauthorised devices? Do you know who's on your system? Do you check the Wi-Fi regularly to see what are the authorised devices on there and how many unauthorised ones are there as well? Right? That's a really interesting thing to do. Make a list of those authorised devices so you know who's supposed to be there. So any of these other ones then can be, let's check this out. Who is this and why are they there? Right? Does your Wi-Fi router still use the standard default username and password? Not too good. If that's the case, you could be taken over very quickly. So you need to change the router password complex. Change your authentication to WPA2. Even though that was hacked the other week, most of the router companies have now got a firmware fix out for it, a firmware update, so you can update that and that resolves that particular problem. Make sure your passphrase is some nice long, apparently random string. Right? Put the password or the passphrase in your password manager so that you've got it. Have you got a software inventory? Do you know what software is actually installed on your computer? Is it licensed? Because if it isn't, it's come from a Warehouse site or something like that. It may have brought along quite a few friends for the ride. Friends being one word for them. Do you know what version it is? Is it updated regularly? How is it updated? When is it updated? You know, these are the sorts of things that they provide this background knowledge for you. That, you know, if things start to go wrong, you know, yeah, I know this. That's not right. That's what it should be. Right? And it starts to give you clues as to what's happening. I'm assuming we're all got antivirus. Right? Okay. Is it a freebie? Or are you actually paying for it? Because if it's freebie, most of them aren't worth much. You've really got to pay for something that's worthwhile. And so I'd suggest, you know, look at the top, for these are the current top 4 that'll change on a regular basis too. McAfee, Bitdefender, Kaspersky, Avast. Right? These are the guys that will help and ensure that you've got good antivirus defence. You might also think about malware defence, because while a virus is malware, well, not all malware is a virus. So this is where you get all sorts of other things coming in. The Trojans, the spyware, the worms, adware. Anybody ever been hit with you open up a website and then suddenly there's thousands of pop-ups coming up? No? And then some of them are porn and some of them are shopping sites and some of them are God only knows what they are. Right? You've been hit by adware. And it just sometimes can be a real nonsense and a nuisance to get rid of it. So this is the sort of stuff. So you might want to think about putting on a malware application, anti-malware application as well. And again, the top 3, Hitman Pro, Malwarebytes, Samana. Personally, I use Malwarebytes. I find that really, really good. And I run that on top of my Kaspersky. Right? And between the two of them, I think it does a good job on my computer. That's my home one where I'm going back to work with you. So have a think about that.
How expensive is Malwarebytes?
For the home one, for me, I think it's around about, I think it's about $49 a year for 5 devices. So it's got my computer, my desktop computer, my laptop, my wife's laptop, my Android tablet, and I've still got one spare. So I don't think that's not a bad deal.
So what antivirus do you use?
Kaspersky. And that's about the same sort of money, roughly.
Was that KAS?
KAS, PERSKY, always got to have a look.
It's a free version of Malwarebytes.
There is a free version.
You've got to update it.
Yes. But seriously, the freeware stuff, it's great to have a look at and see whether this is going to work for you. But if you decide it's worthwhile, buy it. Get the full version. Get the thing that actually works. Get the constant updates. Get the support where if something really goes wrong, you can actually get onto it and say, I've got a problem, and get some support to resolve it. Right? It's worthwhile. You might want to think about email protection. So you might want to filter your email so that you can reduce the number of spam emails coming in. So some of the things that are available, Proofpoint, Sophos, MailGuard, etc. Some of these are fairly expensive, and but depending on what you're doing and the amount of email traffic you're getting, it may prove to be interesting for you. However, a lot of the cloud email ones now are starting to offer it as a service. So Telstra, for example, provides it. So does Office 365 and Gmail. So you can get that email filtering built into it. Right? And particularly if you're doing it, the business versions rather than the home versions, they start to offer this. Remember that phishing protection really is aimed at you. Right? It's not aimed at the device, it's aimed at you, the user. It's trying to get you to lower your defences so they can attack you, your device, everything. Right? If you get a text or a phone call from a bank that you deal with saying they need you to update or verify your details, this is the one big warning sign. Banks know your details. They don't need you to verify them. Right? The only reason somebody wants you to verify the details is because they want to phish you and attack and help you to lose all your money and things. Right? The email or text message may not address you properly, or it may handle mistakes and so on. Or it might not look quite like the website that you go to. It might be subtly different. In some cases, not all that subtle. Not real much the same. And we've all seen some of this stuff. Don't click on any links. Right? Because the link's probably going to take you to a malware drop site and load you up with malware. And never ever provide your personal credit card or online account details. to anybody. Right? I had a call recently from a guy who claimed to be a charity from a charity that I do support, and said, "Oh look, your credit card details have expired." And I thought, interesting, right? Yes. And he said, "Can you give me your credit card details so we can, because we really value your subscription?" I said, "Look, it's not a problem. I'll call you back. I'll give you the number." "No, I'll look you up." "Oh, no. It's seriously, it's just, we just need your credit card details." I said, "Yeah, I know, it's understandable. I will call you." And he get more and more agitated, trying to get me to come to the party here. And I just said, "No, I will call. I will look up the number and I will call." And eventually hung up. It's a phishing attack. Your credit card details have expired. Yeah, okay, that happens every couple of years. I went through it 6 months ago. And it's a pain, as we all know, because then you've got to go through all these different accounts that you use your credit card for regular payments and change things. Okay. But I know this one I'd changed. So it was a nice, interestingly crafted shot in the dark, aimed straight at me to get my credit card details. Call. "Don't worry about it, mate, I'll call you back." "No, it's all right, I've got your number here." Don't need the number. Because the number they give you will go to them, not to the organisation you think you're calling. So this is what it looks like. Here's one that was a couple of years ago, supposedly coming out of Facebook. "Hello, as part of our security measures, we regularly screen activity in the Facebook system. We recently contacted you after noticing an issue on your account." Any problem there? This is the first call. "We recently contacted." Okay. "Our system detected unusual copyrights activity linked to your Facebook account. Please follow the link below to fill the copyright law form." So we've got some really interesting grammar. We've got some different spelling. We've got a link here. Now we've got a threat. If you don't fill in the application, your account will be permanently blocked. Now, if you sent that to my daughters, they would be absolute panic immediately. "Oh my God, I can't go to Facebook. Oh God, I've got to do something," right? And this is this social engineering coming into it again, right? They're trying to get you to act without thinking. So we need to stop, be sceptical, think. It looks like it comes from Facebook. Copyrights department. Don't we normally refer to it as the copyright department? Little things. If you hover your mouse over a link, it'll tell you where it's coming from. Now, that link doesn't look to me like anything like Facebook or Woodgrove Bank in this case, right? It's going somewhere dodgy. As Will said earlier, right click on the photo with LinkedIn request, copy, paste, dump it into Google. Oh dear, look at that, photo stock. Oh, isn't that interesting? So you can report the scams to the ACCC at scamwatch.gov.au, report on scam, and that's where things can start. Right? Do report them. If you do report it and the police do eventually come to you, help them, because the number of people who pull out at that stage and say, "Oh, look, I don't know," is fairly big. So go through with it and give them the details. You can ask for help at ID Care, and they've got a cyber first aid kit where you can get some information, get some help. It's free for individuals. Organisations have to pay, but it's only a small amount, and they use that to help refund the system and keep the system going. You should also think about running phishing awareness training for your staff, and this is a link to a phishing video, right, to show how it's done. And so this is just one of many. If you Google phishing awareness videos, you'll get a stack of them that you can use. But start thinking about it for your staff. Start making your staff aware that this sort of thing can happen. You might consider, we talked about it earlier, web browser updating using a modern web browser, but maybe start adding some extensions to it, things like HTTPS everywhere, forcing you to use the secure method of approaching things. So using SSL to connect and encrypt everything as you go. I would highly recommend installing AdBlock Plus. Now I know some of you probably run websites, and of course you may well be dependent on ads in order for it to be for income. So what you do with AdBlock, AdBlock blocks lots of things, mainly ads, but also a lot of malware. And so you can whitelist things. And so you can say to your customers, if you're using AdBlock Plus, whitelist us, because we'll guarantee we're not putting malware in our advertisements. And it helps support us and helps support the businesses we support. Right? And so a lot of people will do that. It still then allows them to go to other sites and block the ads. But it's a good way to stop that malware getting into you. Ghostery is another one that will help to find out who's putting scripts in there to track you and so on, which cookies. Web of Trust is a similar thing. ScriptSafe is for the more advanced users. If you want to look at the scripts that are being run against the websites, you can look at that and decide which scripts you're going to run. I would look at that as just for advanced users, and there's a link there to how to harden your browser against malware and privacy concerns. So that'll give you some more information about that. Now the really interesting part is thinking about data protection and privacy. We've all got a stack of data, right? A lot of the data is going to be data about your customers, but it also will be data that probably contains some of your business IP, possibly trade secrets. If you're doing any R&D, it's probably got some of your R&D data and that. It'll almost certainly have some financial planning in there. You're all using credit cards on your website or credit cards in your business. So then you're going to have PCI DSS data, the Payments Control Industry Standard. What about your marketing plans? People would probably your competitors would love to see your marketing plans and how you're planning to do things. Has any of your data contained PII data, that personally identifiable information? Because that's the thing that's going to cause you real problems come February. Because if you have a data breach under the new regulations after the 28th of February 2018, and if your business turns over 3 million a year or more, then you are required by law to notify the Australian Privacy Commissioner that you have a data breach. You have to notify the people whose data you hold that there has been a data breach, and you have to tell the Privacy Commissioner how you plan to remediate this. Right? Now, this is going to be big, and it's going to be an issue, particularly if you've got data that is breached. The reputational issue will be a problem too, because suddenly these things can't just be swept under the carpet and kept quiet. We won't say anything about this. You have an obligation to report it. And if you don't report it, the Privacy Commissioner will when they find out about it. Right? So that really then runs to that reputational damage we spoke about earlier, appearing on the front page of the paper and the local news, etc., etc. That can be a really interesting situation. So you really have to start thinking about now about this particular risk and what are you going to do and how you're going to protect it. You might want to think about classification. Now, governments, the federal government, classifies things as top secret, secret, confidential, etc. Right? Normal military type classifications. A lot of enterprises also classify data as confidential, sensitive, internal, or public. So it's public data, you don't care, anybody can have that. But if it's internal data, well, that's only for internals, but if some of that gets out, it might cause problems. But if the data is actually sensitive or confidential, this is data you're going to keep tight, keep it close. And you're going to put extra protection around it. Perhaps you're going to encrypt it. Right? So this is the stuff you need to start thinking about. So maybe you want to start thinking about data classification in your business. How would you classify your PII data, the data about your customers? Certainly not public, possibly not internal. I would suggest to you that maybe you'd probably want to classify that as sensitive, because the ramifications of a data breach could be pretty bad. Right? So sensitive to me would probably be a really good place or level to put that PII data. You might want to think about it the other way too. What's the dollar value of it? And sensitivity can be looked at as the dollar value of the loss of that confidentiality, integrity and accessibility of that data if it's compromised. Right? How much would it cost you to remediate? There's a calculator out there, and we'll try and find the details. Will told me about it earlier, that will give an indication of, in a case of data breach, what is the cost to business, right? But for a data breach that's not uncorrected, it can run into the millions very quickly, right? And if you're a small business, can you afford a couple of $1 million loss? You know,
Yeah.
this could be catastrophic.
It's a calculator being used by the insurance companies now that can take in how many users you've got, the size of your business, and it will work out roughly brand reputation. And it's getting more accurate now as more and more customers are claiming against this other thing.
So yeah, so this might be what you've got to look at. You know, what can we do? How do we do it? And maybe you start thinking about classifying some of the data. So then, how do we prevent it? We haven't got it backed up. I'm sure we have. Is it encrypted? Right? If you're storing tapes off-site, are the tapes encrypted? Or are they stored in clear and stored somewhere else, out of your control, under somebody else's control? How do you know they're not being accessed? Do you know they're not being accessed? Right? How do you know for sure? So our approach to this is, as we back up, we encrypt. So it goes onto the tape, encrypted. Then the data company comes in, they pick up all our tapes, off they go to the off-site storage somewhere in Sydney. It's encrypted. If they want to read it, knock yourself out, boys. It's 256 character string as the encryption code. You know? I think the universe ends before you can crack it. That's the plan anyway. So these are the sorts of things you need to think about. And remember that data breach starts 28th of February. Right? So we've not got a lot of time to really consider what to do. So we're at the end of it. We've gone through all these controls, we've looked at the risk management plan, and now, make an assumption. Assume you are going to be compromised. Right? Don't think, no, I'll get away with this. Assume you will be. What are you going to do when you're compromised? What's your plan? Have you got a plan? If not, make a plan. What am I going to do? Check that you've considered all of the assets. And when you're doing that plan, use the KISS principle. We all know what the KISS principle is. Anybody not sure? No? Okay. And now, do the plan. Put the controls into the plan you've done earlier. Review the priority order. Review the plan. Start implementing. Start at number 1. Work through. There's the resources, guys, for you to have a look at. There's a few. There's lots and lots of information out there. What I would suggest is don't get bogged down with information. Stick to the essential 8 and get those in place. Once you've got those in place, then you've got time and room to go play further. Get the essentials in first, because that will give you that base level of protection you need to implement that risk management plan that you must have. So there we go, guys. If you need to contact me, that's me.